I'm starting to crave those lighter, fresh dishes as the days get warmer and get longer. I have some fresh green beans here. I just cut the ends off and give them a nice rinse, and then I'm blanching them in a little bit of boiling water that I added some Celtic sea salt to. I just cook those for a few seconds. I blanch them and then I scoop them out with my little spider here and just run them under cold water in the sink just so that they're bright and crisp for the salad I'm making today. So I'm making a salad that has these green beans and cucumbers. I've also thinly sliced up some red onion, and that's gonna add some nice crispness and a little bit of sweetness to the salad too. And then I'll be adding in some cucumbers. So I'm just slicing those and making half moons out of them. So I slice them in half long ways, lengthwise, and then I'll just cut them, and that way I have nice little half moons to put into the salad. I love how beautiful and crisp and crunchy they are, and it also adds a lot of water content to the salad and just makes it super hydrating and delicious to eat. Salads are really only as good as the dressing, so here this dressing is going to be full of bright flavors and sweetness. So it has a lot of different flavors going on, and it creates the most amazing dressing for all these beans. I'm just using a few bread and butter pickles that are fermented and then just chopping those up, and those work almost as a topping, but they're also part of the dressing. Next, to add a nice briny flavor that you get in salad dressing, I'm adding in some capers, and I've been starting to cook with capers a lot more because they just have a certain tanginess and flavor that you can't get in many places. So they're a good staple ingredient just to keep in your pantry. I love a homemade vinaigrette that includes apple cider vinegar that's raw because it's so great for your gut. So I'm pairing raw apple cider vinegar with extra virgin olive oil and then adding in a little bit of stone ground mustard, or you could just use Dijon spicy mustard, and a little bit of maple syrup to really add some sweetness and kind of mellow everything out. I love how all these different flavors work together to create a really simple and quick vinaigrette, but it's super, super flavorful. Then I'll just add some salt and pepper to taste. I always make sure to add plenty since vegetables have so much water content. You really need to up the amount of salt you're using to make it flavorful. I'm also going to add in 1 crushed garlic clove, and then at the end I'll taste it again to check it for salt, and I always end up adding just a little bit more to get it just right. Then I ran out to the garden real quick and I grabbed a few of my herbs, and today I'm using parsley and dill. But you could use almost any combination of fresh herbs here. Basil would be delicious. You could even try something a little different like tarragon or fennel. But today I'm just using kind of my staple favorites and things that go really well with more pickly flavors. So I just chopped those up finely and added that into the mix. And then I added in all the delicious toppings, the chopped up pickles and the green beans that I blanched. And now I'm adding in 3 cans of beans. I just have a variety here of chickpeas or garbanzo beans, red kidney beans, and some little white beans as well. I love the combination of all 3 of those. It's delicious. And of course it didn't fit in my bowl, so I had to move that over to a new bowl. And it's so good already, but as it sits in the fridge and marinates, it just gets better and better. It also makes a really great dish for meal prep, so if you want to make a big bowl of it like I do, and then just leave it in the fridge for a couple of days, it gets better with time, and the cucumbers in here almost start to pickle and give it just a little bit more flavor, so it's delicious. My daughter loved it. She had to come in here and taste test, and it's just so fantastic. This is definitely a favorite, and we can eat this whole bowl of fresh green beans and beans in one day. Now I'm getting started on a sauce that I'm using for dinner tonight. And I love making my own homemade sauces. They're usually really quick and easy, but they're full of flavor and they have really good ingredients. I like to keep them nice and clean. So I'm just throwing in a little bit of avocado oil mayo in a bowl, and that's the base, along with some cultured sour cream. So I love good culture because it's organic and cultured cream, and it's just lots of good healthy fats here that helps to keep us really full and satisfied, and has amazing flavor. So this is kind of a chipotle style. It's going to be nice and smoky and creamy. I'm also going to add in some fresh lime juice to this that's going to really brighten up this fish taco sauce. I misplaced my citrus squeezer, but what I've discovered is that if you have a pair of tongs, they work almost better than a citrus squeezer, especially for limes since they don't have the same seeds as lemons. So I just put those in between my tongs and give it a squeeze. And then I'll add in garlic powder, lots of yummy garlic flavor here, and then I'll add in paprika or smoked paprika, chili powder for even more smokiness, and then I'm also using that same jar of capers I used already. I'm going to use some of them again, and it adds a nice texture to the sauce, but also that same kind of briny flavor, and it's so good with fish tacos. I almost always have a jar of chipotles in my fridge, and that's chipotles in adobo sauce. So I'm just pulling out a couple teaspoons of the adobo sauce and adding it into this smoky kind of chipotle cream sauce and just stirring that together. And it's as simple as that. But I love this. It's like the perfect fish taco sauce, which is what I'm making for dinner tonight. And since I made so much fish taco sauce, I thought it would be a good idea to use it as a dressing for the slaw that I'm going to use with our fish tacos. So I have a little bit of red cabbage and green cabbage that's been in the fridge, and I'm going to use some of it, and then I'll store the rest of it in one of my silicone bags here, and we'll use that cabbage for cabbage salad later, probably in the week. That's one of our favorite foods to just always have. It's such a staple, and I put a little bit of apple cider vinegar, so it's almost like a quick sauerkraut, but tastes so much better to us. Take the cabbage and shred it on a box grater, and that's going to make that really thin angel hair style coleslaw that's perfect for topping tacos with. And then I'll just use a little bit of fish taco sauce to double as this coleslaw dressing. I'll just take some of that sauce and drizzle it over the top and stir it all together. You could add a little pinch of salt if you need it, and then I'll just leave this in the fridge covered, and it'll be ready to go for our tacos tonight. Now I just have out my sourdough starter, and I'm actually feeding 2 different starters right now. I'm just feeding them both so that I have plenty of starter to make a few recipes that I plan on making tomorrow. I weigh that out on my digital scale, and that is really the easiest way to do it, I found. It just makes it really accurate all the time and kind of takes a lot of guesswork out. So I use it, and I've been using it for a long time now. I'm just going to go ahead and feed my starter with a little bit of organic, unbleached, all-purpose flour, just like I always do. And I'm doing 2 of them so that I have enough. And it's easier to separate it out when I have 2 different jars going. And actually, one of them is sourdough starter, and then the other one is a leaven for a bread recipe that I'm making. So it's more specific, and you just dump in the whole jar of it versus just some of it and weighing that out. So anyway, I keep a nice thick starter. That way I don't have to feed it very often, and I feed it about once a week and then keep it stored in the fridge. But right now I'm just going to let these rise overnight on the counter so that I can do my baking tomorrow. Now I'm just fluffing up some flour and measuring it out because I'm going to try making homemade flour tortillas for the first time. And this is just something that sounds really good to me. And the flour tortillas at the grocery store, even if they're organic, they tend to always bring out my gluten issues and sensitivities. So I thought, why not give it a shot at home? It's so basic and uses really simple ingredients. So I'm just using some organic, unbleached, all-purpose flour, some salt, avocado oil, but you could also substitute that for butter or lard, and hot water. And that's just an authentic way to make tortillas. And I've discovered you can do it with or without baking powder. I think a lot of people use baking powder, and you can do it either way. So if you like a more thin tortilla, you can use no baking powder. And then if you like a little bit of a fluffier tortilla, then you'll want to use just a little bit of baking powder to help give it that thicker and more fluffy consistency. I just stirred this batter together with my dough whisk until it kind of pulls itself together. And then I'll get my hands in there and give it a little bit of kneading. That way it comes into a really smooth, tight ball. And then I'll let this rest for a little while before I portion it out into individual tortillas. And then you can roll them out by hand, but I actually ordered a cast iron tortilla press. This is something that I'm interested in doing long term. So I thought it's a good little investment to make to just make the whole process a lot quicker and more efficient. You can either do large tortillas or smaller ones like I'm doing, and I'm going to use these for my fish tacos tonight. So I'm making kind of a small soft taco tortilla size. So tonight I'm just doing really easy fish tacos, and you can do the fish on a sheet pan, and I'll be doing it with a little bit of blackening seasoning. And I love to make my own homemade seasonings too. Usually if you try to buy them at the grocery store, they tend to have a bunch of strange ingredients and sometimes gluten too. So I'm just going to make it myself because it's so simple. For this blackening seasoning, I'm just using chili powder and some cumin, garlic powder, onion powder, and of course plenty of salt and pepper. Then I just stir that all together, and it's just a quick blackening seasoning you can use on chicken or shrimp or fish, and it's so flavorful but made with clean and organic spices. So now I'll just go ahead and get my fish out and sprinkle this over it. Tonight I'm using one of my favorite fishes, which is mahi, and it's so steaky and meaty for a fish, so it's one of my favorites. I'll just spray my fish down with a little bit of avocado oil, and that just helps to keep that blackening seasoning to stick to it. And my trick for making good blackened fish is actually to spray it beforehand with your avocado oil, or just rub it down with a little bit of oil. Then put your spices on, kind of like a dry rub, but then don't touch it and don't spray anything else on top. And that helps to form that really delicious kind of blackened crust that you want. And I'm just going to bake those on a parchment-like baking sheet at about 450. And I think I baked these fillets around 12 minutes or so, just until it's fully cooked through and nice and brown and blackened on top. Then I went back to making my tortillas. So the dough has rested and the flour has absorbed some of the liquids. So now it's nice and kind of fluffy. And I took my bench scraper and portioned those out. And I started out with them being a little bit bigger. Then as I kind of went through the process, I realized I think I want smaller and thinner tortillas because I like a nice thin tortilla that's really pliable. And I just kind of rolled those into a tight little ball, just like you would with a dinner roll. Then I just placed them on the cast iron press, and I used a little bit of flour to dust the ball of dough in first, that way it wouldn't stick as badly. And then I grabbed some of my unbleached parchment paper sheets, and I always have a ton of those. I buy them in bulk, they're a lifesaver. And so I just used a couple of those, one on the top and one on the bottom, and then put my ball of tortilla dough in the middle, and I just pressed them down that way so they wouldn't stick to the tortilla press, and it worked fantastically. You can already see that beautiful tortilla texture before I ever even cook them. So to cook them, it's really easy and fast. All I do is I heated up my cast iron griddle. I'll link this one down below. It's the best ever. And I just sprayed it with a little bit of avocado oil. Then I cook them on either side just for a few seconds. So the first side, you want to cook it a little bit longer, and then kind of like a pancake, you flip it and just cook it a few more seconds on the other side. Then you want to put them in a towel and wrap them up to keep them warm, and that helps keep them warm, but it also helps to soften them and help them to become pliable. So definitely don't skip that step. You want to keep them wrapped up so that they have nice kind of movement to them. And then once those were all cooked, dinner was ready. So I put my mahi down first in the tortillas, and then I topped it with some of that delicious slaw and extra sauce, cilantro for mine because I like cilantro, and that was dinner tonight. Fresh from scratch, and my whole family went crazy for it.